30 running together. The two ESM cars, they can work together as a duo to try and catch back up to the Norma train. It is David Grant in the number 40 who is in 6th, and then Lance Wilsey, the first of our Masters competitors, in the number 33 Ligier. They're still very close at the front of the field, the two team cars, almost nose to tail, literally, as they come out of the far side of the circuit and down the long straight. This is where the Norma really succeeds, because they are a much less draggy car. They are built for the high-speed portions of Road Atlanta. And maybe the Ligiers have the advantage through Sector 1, which is a little bit twistier, but it is the Normas that really stretch their legs and show their power as they come into that Sector 2 and then in 3.
They do a pretty good lead there over the rest of the field, but these three cars still pretty much tied together there in 1st, 2nd and 3rd. And a little bit of a gap to the two Extreme Speed Motorsports cars in 4th and 5th, but that's just fine for them at this stage in the game.
Bad news for Jerry Kraut. He'll be getting a drive-through penalty for making a pass under yellow. That is something race control takes very seriously indeed. And in MPC, Kyle Masson is up to 2nd after that restart. So he went from last to 2nd in almost no time at all. And Rob Hodis is off the course again with no traction on the grass. He's rolling the car backwards. Is that up at turn 4, Jeremy? Up through the S's, maybe? He's trying to engage
He's trying to get it out of the way, actually. Is he? Or is he just trying to get it?
He's trying to go forward. And,
no surprise that Kyle Masson is up to 2nd place so quickly, because he's the champion last year. He clearly far and away the fastest driver in this field in MPC. But the equally good, or equally impressive, or perhaps probably more impressive, is John Brownson, the veteran, who is up into 3rd position, having also started at the back.
Jeremy, Dave House just came into the pit lane, our MPC championship leader at the start of the race. They are taking the nose off of this car. It is not a standard pit stop. So for the oldest winner in IMSA competition, drama. And it was he who contacted Rob Hodis. That's coming into turn 10 just before the bridge. That is why Hodis got stuck off the course. And that is why Dave House is now in the pits.
Well, Rob Hodis was trying to make his way back, I guess, and those two made contact. That is most unfortunate.
That's the
two championship leaders, ironically.
Exactly. First place in Masters and first place in Mazda Prototype Challenge MPC coming into the weekend. Rob Hodis is still shown as stopped out on course, so hopefully he's been able to roll the car back to a safe place. That is at turn 10. We've got a penalty for Andrew Evans, who came back out of the pit lane after the initial damage in contact with Rob Hodis at turn 1. He has run the light at the pit exit, and Michael Klemecki is off as well.
Oh, wow. All of the leaders pretty much have had problems except for our pole sitter.
Wow.
All of the class leaders, either in the race or in the championship. That's Michael Klemecki, who led from the pole position. Under intense pressure he was from Kyle Masson.
Yep.
And John Brownson, whether he made a mistake, whether it was contact, who knows. But the car is stationary up there at the top of the hill. Let's have a look. He just got way over the curb there to turn 3, just lost control, and he's, nosed it into the barriers pretty heavily.
He did. Nothing is overtly broken, though. Nothing looks completely bent out of shape from initial sight, but it was a big hit for Klemecki. Hopefully he can get it fired up and back out on the circuit running around, and he does, which means that he can bring it back into the pit lane. He can shake it down first, see if everything feels okay. Hopefully stay out on course, as Klemecki is somebody who's really fun to watch. But that means Kyle Masson started at the back and now is leading after 15 minutes of racing.
Yeah, but John Brownson is staying right with him there, isn't he? In 2nd position in class in MPC, 14th and 15th place overall, number 11 and the number 34. John Brownson, like I say, the veteran driver, he actually had a birthday this week, his 65th birthday. Hope you won't mind me saying that, but he's in the car, so he can't hear me. But he is the most experienced driver in this championship. 121 starts, dating all the way back to 2007 when he made his debut. Veteran driver, won the Masters Championship when it was a Masters Championship in that class several times over the years, and just a great competitor. Had an engine failure in free practice 2 yesterday. Wasn't able to take part in qualifying, but making his way up through the field and hanging on to the tail of Kyle Masson.
TJ Fisher has not been able to pull away from his teammate Rodrigo Fluker either. The 47 and 74 still tethered together by a very thin bungee cord. Memo Gidley has dropped back a tiny bit from that battle. He's about 2 seconds further behind the leading duo, but for right now, Fisher and Fluker just looking forward and focusing on doing everything they can. It's Austin McCusker who comes in this weekend second in the championship as John DeAngelis goes for a rotation. And Jeremy, we are glad to see that car running at all. Yesterday, John DeAngelis with a moment up at turn 5. He wound up on top of the tires, and oh, Howard Jacobs not making things easy for TJ Fisher. Goes around the outside, and Fisher nearly off in the grass trying to get by the MPC car, but still Fisher then Fluker, so no lead change, even though they were passing slower cars and had to take evasive action. That was a close moment.
Yes, he was, wasn't it?
Yeah, John DeAngelis just had that spin, or did he? Well, he was going very slowly, and oh, good grief, that would be a moment for TJ Fisher, where he doesn't need an espresso shot anymore. He just got a very big wake-up call. His teammate Austin McCusker comes in second in the championship, and although there's no hope of catching Chris Wright, for Maxwell Hanratty, one of the drivers in the number 3 ESM machine, there is still a 4-point gap between those two drivers, so Fisher realizes he has to try and protect his teammates' place as second in the championship as they go 4 wide coming down the front stretch in front of us, Jeremy. That was moment 2.
And Chris Wright again being very, very cautious out there. I mean, he just doesn't want to get in any scrapes at all. He waited till he slowed right down to those 2 MPC cars take the preferred racing line through the final corner. Just wasn't prepared to push it at all. He doesn't really need to worry at this stage. He can just go for it because I don't think he even has to finish as far as the points are concerned. Even if McCusker and Fisher win the race, he's going to score enough points to win the championship. So I'm quite sure why he's being that cautious at this stage. But the first 2 pulling away now from Memo Gidley.
Just under an hour and 27 minutes remaining in the 2018 season for the IMSA Prototype Challenge presented by Mazda. Your leaders are TJ Fisher in the number 47 Motorsports Ligier and Kyle Masson for Performance Tech in the number 11 MPC car. Kyle Masson all over the back of Jim Garrett. Another one of those drivers, Jeremy, who will be driving slightly cautiously because Jim Garrett comes into the weekend with a shot at the Masters Championship, and he realizes that the guy behind him, Kyle Masson, knows what he's doing in an MPC car. He won the championship handily last year, driving these cars now, trying to help his father do the same. And it is a long uphill climb for Dr. Robert Masson. Came into the race 7th in points. The good news for him, though, is that Dave House, who came in with the championship lead, has already had dramas, so that is one of the competitors in front of them in the championship who he'll be scoring more points than. But for Kyle Masson, he's got to do some work to try and keep Pops in the running, and he's doing everything he can and needs to at this point in the race. Kyle Masson just put a move on Jim Garrett down the inside at the final turn. That was fantastic. He is a fine young man to watch as Jim Garrett got a bit flustered. He got target fixation. Oh, big lockup, just gently nudged the back of the car in front of him. That was the number 4 of Dean Baker. And Masson was a long way back from that. Very smart, but got a good view. The rears locked up, big cloud of white smoke, so Jim Garrett was probably a bit flustered coming into that final turn, giving Masson the opportunity. And there was contact between the 2 cars, so hopefully Garrett's front end is okay. He'll be handing over to Robbie Foley after the pit stop sequence. By the way, if this is your first time joining us for the IMSA Prototype Challenge presented by Mazda, welcome. We have 2 different categories of cars. The open cockpit cars are the MPC, so if you can see the driver's helmet, that is for that category. If you can't, if it's a closed cockpit car with the windshield, that is the LMP3. Currently, a Norma chassis leads the way. The number 47 is driven by TJ Fisher. It is Norma, Norma, Norma. And then the first of our Ligiers, Chris Wright, driving the number 30 machine. It is all black, but it is from Extreme Speed Motorsport. And he is our champion-elect once the race is finished. Kyle Masson up to 13th overall. TJ Fisher putting in decent lap times.
But again, John Brownson is right with him. He's less than a second behind him in that primarily red car, car number 34, really doing an excellent job.
Well, coming into the weekend, Dr. Masson, not Kyle, but his dad, is 7th in the championship. John Brownson is 5th. There are 3 points separating the two of them. So if they finish as they run, effectively, that gap is a tie. 35 points for the win, 32 points for second. That would negate one issue, and then it would go to a win tiebreaker, which would put it towards Masson. That's completely counting out everybody else in their finishing positions, of course, but we'll get to that a little bit later on. There will be a lot of math for Jeremy to do, so he might have to take his shoes and socks off and use the toes for counting as well.
On that last lap, clearly some sort of an issue there, presumably in traffic for Rodrigo Fluker in the second place car. He's all of a sudden lost a lot of ground to the race leader, and Memo Gidley was able to kind of halve the gap back from third place to second place. So now the top three are pretty equally spaced, just a couple of seconds or so apart. Number 47 ahead, with number 74, then number 88.
TJ Fisher managed to get around Paul LaHaye in the number 36 MPC car fairly easily. It took a bit longer for Rodrigo, though, Jeremy. That would be the difference. And we're getting a couple of penalties dropping in. The car number 34, which is John Brownson, is getting a drive-through penalty for passing under yellow. That will break up that battle for the lead in MPC. And also, car number 60 is getting a drive-through penalty. That is Bruce Hamilton in Ligier, currently running in 10th for the same infraction, passing under yellow. So they both will have to come down the pit lane and serve that drive-through.
So it's a bit tricky out there for some of these guys, because there's a huge speed differential between some of these contenders and the leaders. Or some of the non-contenders as leaders, I suppose, would be a better way to put it, because you know, some of these guys are pretty inexperienced out there. But there's some good battles going on all the way down the field, and we're now got only 18 cars on the lead lap after starting with 27.
Well, and out of our Masters contenders out on track right now, Lance Wilsey leads in the 33, and as I say it, he's off the course and stopped, manages to get going again. So that will mean Cameron Castles is leading the Masters class, because Jim Garrett came into the pit lane. He was making sure that the front end of that car was okay after the moment of contact that he had between himself and Dean Baker, as the 34, John Brownson, goes around Kyle Masson and takes the lead. But remember, Brownson has a penalty to serve. Brownson will need to come into the pit lane. Masson does not need to try and pass Brownson back. They need to get on the radio to him right now, the Performance Tech crew, and say, Kyle, he's got a penalty, just wait. We've seen this happen in Formula One even a couple of weeks ago, Jeremy, or a week ago, where Sebastian Vettel went to make a pass around Max Verstappen that he didn't need to make because Verstappen got a penalty. Masson needs to just be patient, because Brownson in the 34 car right ahead of him will be coming into the pit lane. It is not for a position on track. Yeah,
and he'll have been informed of that, and Carl's been around the sport a long time. He's also driving, of course, in the IMSA Petit Le Mans tomorrow. So you know, he's only been racing for a couple of 3 years, but he's experienced. He's won a championship. He knows how to win championships, and he knows that there's no point in getting any scrapes. He knows he's way faster than most of these other guys. Just keep it clean, hand it over to his dad, who's also quick enough to win the race.
Exactly.
And so make sure it's clean. And if Brownson has that penalty to serve as well, then it's looking even better for him.
David Grant got around Harry Gottsacker a moment ago in the number 40 Ligier. That is the bright yellow one, making a pass on the car bearing the Extreme Speed Motorsports color. Harry Gottsacker making his debut this weekend in this championship, and for very high downforce cars. Doing a good job so far. Hate to give him the curse of the commentator, so I'll say no more about that. We do have John Brownson in the pit lane to serve that drive-through penalty, which means Kyle Masson goes back to the lead. Gerhard Watzinger now up to second in his number 32 machine, and Tazio Otis in third in the number 28. Brownson will not be enjoying his very slow trip down the pit lane.
TJ Fisher on that lap. He's lost the lead. It's now Rodrigo Fluker who's in the lead race. He's been trying to get past Jerry Kraut, car number 55, who was at the tail end of the lead lap. There must have been some sort of a get-together between those two, I would surmise, because TJ Fisher all of a sudden is back in second place. It's number 74 car now that leads by around about a second, so not much. And Memo Gidley in car number 88, he's right with them now as well.
There's a really intensive battle between Watzinger and Otis for that second position as they are being slowed down by the number 17 of Matthew Dickin, an LMP3 car, and the two MPC cars weaving back and forth. Otis all over Watzinger, going around the left, going around the right, darting back and forth, trying to get the draft. Otis wants past Watzinger, and he's going to get there one way or another, Jeremy. He goes around the outside, diving down, trying to take the inside line into turn 10, hard on the brakes, and he gets it done. Well done. Watzinger fighting back there for a moment, but Otis managing to pull ahead just ever so slightly. They come down the final turn, diving toward the start-finish line, and it will be Otis who inherits the second position. That was a great scrap for it. Rob Hodison shot as well, is still out there and circulating. He has completed 13 laps versus 17 for the leaders. So his championship hopes getting smaller and smaller as the day goes on. And right behind him is the leader, Rodrigo Fluker, out of Peru in that number 74 Norma for 47 Motorsports. Behind him is teammate in the 47, TJ Fisher, who started on pole. The gap now down to under a second between the two of them. And then Memo Gidley in the number 88 machine is 3 seconds back.
Yeah, so the last lap time for the leader of 1:21.6. They had been lapping in a low 19s. The fastest lap was actually set by TJ Fisher at a 1:18.7 handful of laps ago, but they're working their way through slower cars, and it's going to cost them time.
And especially down the straight, that's not a place where you want to have to lift at all, and that's exactly what TJ Fisher had to do, watching the leader get ever so slightly smaller in the windshield as Fluker had no problem passing the slower cars. The cars now down a lap. And his teammate TJ Fisher just struggling a little bit more to cut through all of the traffic. This is what Memo Gidley is hoping happens, because he wants an opportunity to fight back and perhaps even lead the race. It would be the first time for the team if Gidley could get into the head of the field. And the 5 Miles Out Racing organization, it's Memo Gidley and Charles Chi in the number 88. In the 87, the sister car, it's Nick Colvius and Hannah Zellers this weekend in the other Norma. So it's Norma, 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 Ligier, 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 Norma.
Yeah, certainly Memo enjoying his return to the sport this season with this new team, 5 Miles Out Racing. Big ambitions for Charles Chi for the future, but taking things one step at a time. And he's learning pretty quickly. He's not going to be in contention to win probably at the end of this race, but certainly Memo is showing what this team is capable of, and you know, his veteran style getting through the traffic much more cleanly than the two race leaders. And it's Rodrigo Fluker who leads, but Memo now is all over the back of TJ Fisher, and a couple of car lengths behind as they head towards turn 10 and 10A and 10B this time around to complete lap 19.
Already an hour and just under 16 minutes to go. We will have mandatory pit stops for every car in the field. It is a set amount of time from when you come in to pit out, a set amount of minimum time. If you shortcut it.
Memo's got the run on the inside down here because TJ
was blocked.
Lost some time there behind the lapped car of Matthew Dickin, and Memo Gidley able to time that to perfection. Got a good run off the final corner, able to get down the inside at turn 1. So a new second place car on the 20th lap.
Memo is on a mission. As you mentioned, driving with Charles Chi, quick learner. He's the chancellor of Carleton University in Ottawa. So he is a very quick learner and a very quick educator as well. Kyle Masson continues to lead in the MPC class, looking to make a move on both Lance Wilsey, but that first is the lapped car of Andrew Evans, who had dramas earlier on. Kyle looking over to the left, the helmet pointed in that direction, just watching the much faster LMP3 car drag past him, and Masson knows that he'll have an opportunity to get back around those cars if he can catch back up to them through the twisty bits, which are where the MPC cars are much more nimble. They are basically go-karts. They're wonderful little cars. And this is the last race for the MPC cars. Masson goes 4 wheels off coming under the bridge, manages to pull it back onto the pavement as the race leader, Rodrigo Fluker, goes past him. That was a scary moment for Kyle, perhaps a slight lapse of concentration. And that's all it would take to throw away any sort of championship aspirations for that 11 machine. Need to stay completely focused as he comes through 10A, turns into 10B, gets a bit of a wiggle on, lets the car run out over the curves, and then just gets sucked into the grass on the outside of the track. It's easy to do. It's hard to pull the car back on. And the big concern now is, did he get any sort of grass in the radiator? Is there any reason that he would need to come in and pit? From our view, there's nothing wrong with the car. Kyle might be feeling a little bit otherwise. And that's the other thing about these cars, Jeremy. It's a little bit difficult to clean grass out of the radiator when it happens, because you have to pull all of the bodywork paneling off, and the front is held in place with screws. So it's not the quickest job in the world. The crews would rather their drivers keep the cars on the racetrack, but it is the final race for the MPC car, the little lawn chassis, which has served us so well in the years of IMSA racing. I'm really going to miss seeing those cars.
Yeah, it's been a super workhorse, and there's going to be plenty for these cars to do down the road. There's going to be other series cropping up for them, I'm sure, on a sort of semi-amateur basis. But watching the leaders there, Rodrigo Fluker is still struggling to find his way past these slower cars. He's trapped in behind the number 4 car, Dean Baker, who's trying desperately to stay on the lead lap. Also, Lance Wilsey is riding that little battle as well, and of course the second place car of Memo Gidley. That's a big train of cars heading over the top of the crest of the hill, then down through the S's.
And I have no problem with someone fighting to stay on the lead lap, because should a caution come out, it would mean that Dean Baker would still be in the fight for the lead, and especially when he hands over to Zachary Robichon later on in the race. But now he has to give up the straight line speed advantage to the Norma, and indeed Fluker makes his pass, as does Memo Gidley, around Andrew Evans. So that's one less car between himself and the leader, Gidley, who is driving splendidly today, a man on a mission. And he is letting it be known that he wants to lead this race. 2 Ligiers separate Gidley from Fluker, and he just has to get around them on the long straight. But the Norma has the speed advantage going into the braking into 10A. It is Gidley who gets past both of them. Lance Wilsey having to lock up the brakes as to not run into Baker. Close moment there, but manages to get everything back under control. Cameron Castles, by the way, leads the Masters class in the number 75 machine, as he is the first Master whose name pops up on the timing screen, and I give him credit for leading because he is the one running in that category. He is not a second driver running with a Master. Fluker, Gidley, Fisher, Wright, Grant, Gottsacker. Those are our top 6 in the LMP3 category, and our top 2 still very close together despite running through all this traffic. It's only a second and a half separating first from second.
Yeah, and the Masters class is still interesting because number 42 car has been slipping back. He's back now in the 22nd position overall. He must have had a spin at some stage. I don't think we saw it, did we, for Jim Garrett?
No, he came into the pit lane because he had the contact on the back of one of the other LMP3 cars.
So
So Jim Garrett, so Rob Hodis, first off, by the way, comes into the race leading the championship, has the off in turn 1, goes several laps down. Jim Garrett comes into the race second in the championship, has contact going into 10A, has to come into the pit lane to make sure that everything is okay on his Ligier, as we have a car peeling off into the pit lane. I think that is Michael Klemecki coming in. We've got Cameron Castles comes into the race third in the championship, currently leading the Masters category, and I'm not going to say any more because I don't want to curse him. It was Michael Klemecki into the pit lane. Jeremy, is he doing a drive-through? Let's see. Now Klemecki, who has had a couple of starts this year where he's done just this, and then a mechanical gremlin has bitten him. I hope it's not the same today, as the car comes to a stop and crew members jump over the wall. They are going to work on his car. The seatbelts are coming off. That looks like it is potentially day done for Michael Klemecki. Oh, not again.
Yeah.
Well, Kyle Masson leads that class. From Tazio Otis, it is John Brownson. Oh no, it was Watzinger. It was Gerhard Watzinger who came in the pit lane. I'm sorry, I apologize for that. In the number 32, Watzinger making his return to the series, his first start of the season, and it is he who is calling it, as Klimecki is also in the pit lane but has been in for a little while now. So both the 31 and the 32 from the MPC category are parked, as is Dave House in the 86 machine, who came into the race as the championship leader.
This is opening the door for other contenders, certainly in terms of the championship. It came in here with the top 7 separated by just 9 points.
And mind you, it's not that this is the 3rd race of the season. This is the 6th round, and we still have that many cars close together as Kyle Masson dives into the pit lane.
Yeah, have we completed the 40 minute drive time?
No.
An hour and 8
minutes to go.
Less 45, that's 37, isn't it? So
that's 37.
It hasn't completed the drive time, so this can't be scheduled for car number 11.
This is not good for the Performance Tech team. Just Jeremy, if you want to keep an eye out on track, I'll see what they're doing down at Performance Tech, but the car has come to a stop. Nobody is over the wall yet for the number 11. Dr. Masson slated to get in and take over for his son, Kyle. They're looking...
He won't be making that driver change yet, that's for sure, because he hasn't completed the minimum drive time.
Jeremy, the car might be overheating from the grass picked up in the radiator from when he had that brief off-track excursion. It doesn't take much. They're dropping tires over the wall now. Going to change the fronts, perhaps. Front left is the area that they're focusing on, as they are changing that Continental tire and pulling an air jack around the other side to change the other tire as well.
And having worked their way through the traffic, the race leader now, Rodrigo Fluker, is back into the 19s, 1 minute 19.5 last time around, having been doing 21s and even 22s when he was struggling to find his way through some slower traffic. So he's back up to speed now. He's only a second and a half or so ahead of Memo Gidley, who's hanging right there for 5 miles out racing. And then TJ Fisher, he's about 5 seconds back in the 3rd position, a long way clear of the championship leader, Chris Wright, in car number 30.
We were about 2 minutes away from the pit window opening when drivers may come down to the pit lane. And you might be wondering, well, if there are drivers doing the whole race themselves, why do they need to come in? Well, they need to refuel. Everybody has to get fuel, and during the refueling time, drivers have to get out of their car and climb back over the wall. They can't be standing on the pit lane because they would then count as one of the crew members over the wall, and that would sabotage the team, so they need the driver back over the wall. And it is a mandated time as Joel Janko goes for a ride after missing his braking point at 10A and then goes for a spin on the exit.
The mistake.
Oh gosh, and Joel Janko came into the championship 4th in points, saw the window open when 1st and 2nd dropped down a little bit further. Did he just miss his braking point? Well, he had the race leader behind him and walked up late in, and Joel Janko just goes for a crash on the front straight as well, just in front of us, Jeremy, as he comes out of the final turn and looped it. That brings out a local yellow. We'll see if we go full course caution. Can Joel get it going again? He's facing the wrong direction, and it did sound like a big impact, but the bodywork is not askew from initial vantage. I can't imagine that there's not something further wrong. Joel just looked over to the right as he was turning into the corner and then looked back to the left.
3 mistakes in as many corners.
Oh my goodness. That's not going to make Joel very happy, as the car just caught, it bit as he was coming out of the corner, but he was nowhere near the outside curb. He was not on the line at all.
No, that's right. I mean, he'd made a mistake 2 corners before at turn 10A and at 10B, because he carried too much speed across there. He tried to collect it all and spun across the racetrack there, got back on again, so there was dirt and grass and dampness on the tyre. So when he got to turn 12 there, no grip at all pretty much, and again, as you say, lost control. And that's going to bring out the caution for the 3rd time. Full
course caution is out, and we will be behind the safety car as the IMSA safety crew has already gotten to Joel Janko. He's popped open his door to signify that he is okay, and there is a slippery surface flag being waved as well, because there's a lot of grass that was torn up and thrown onto the front straight.
Right, so
where are we, Jeremy?
Well, we've got 8 cars only on the lead lap at this stage. The Cameron Castles is on the lead lap. He's the last car on the lead lap. So it's Rodrigo Fluker that leads at car number 74. And McGidley still in second place there in car number 88. TJ Fisher, the teammate of the leader, in third position, car number 47. Then David Grant will be handing over to his brother in the second stint. Then Chris, who's got past Chris Wright, by the way, just on that last lap, I think, actually. They'd been having a good long battle there, kind of numbers 30 and 40, but it's the number 40 car that is now ahead as they complete lap 27 under caution. Behind him is car number 3, that's Harry Gottsacker, making his debut in this sort of a car. As we watch again, that was Joel Janko running across the grass and then compounding a mistake by spinning off on the outside of 10B. And he got back on the road again, but not for much longer, because he just, made a mistake, basically. He just pinched the car down for some reason. He got on the power coming through turn 12. The back stepped out and he wasn't able to keep control of the car, so make some contact with the inside wall, and that's going to be the end of the day for car number 25. Incidentally, the number 51 of Rob Hoders, who had that coming together with Andrew Evans on the very first lap, those two are still back out in the race, and ironically they're in consecutive positions, 23rd, 24th overall. They'll move up after when they finally do enough laps to overtake Joel Janko, who's in the wall there in car number 25. But they are still both going again, and that's certainly good news for Rob Hoders, who still has an outside chance, but a very, very slim one, of taking the Masters category. But he is 3 or 4 laps down, 4 laps down from the overall leaders.
It's worth mentioning
what my point there was, he's actually been running quite well, some good lap times, both he and Andrew Evans running some good lap times, even though they're several laps down.
And it's worth noting that we are behind the safety car, which means that the pit lane is closed. You can't come down the pit lane, but if you do, you're going to be serving a drive-through penalty once we go back to green. So it is optimum not to make a visit down the pit lane at this time.
No, but we're an hour and 2 minutes
the window
remaining
is
in the race. The window is just open now, isn't it? Yeah, because 40 minutes is it. What happened there?
John Brownson in the number 34 did not get on the brakes quickly enough as we came to the start-finish line, locked up and ran into the back of Kyle Masson in the number 11, as people were perhaps not paying as close attention as they should have been, just regarding the fact that we are under safety car conditions. It means go slowly and be prepared to stop at any point in time, and John did get it slowed down, but it was with the assistance of Kyle Masson's back of the car.
So there was contact between those two.
Yes, there was.
Oops.
Slight contact, but still. Joel Janko has been spun around the proper direction as he does a very wide turn to try and get it back on the circuit, and actually drives off the grass on the other side of the racetrack, but he is now on the hard standing and heading around once again. The left-hand side of that number 25 machine from P1 Motorsports quite scraped up, and it's got a lot of grass on it from this early morning, which does tend to be heavier and sticks to places, so he'll want to come down the pit lane as soon as that opens. Now the pass around has begun. This is the opportunity for cars that are a lap down between the leader of class and the safety car, so we should have only one taker, I would imagine. 1 or 2.
Yeah, as you say, this is any of the MPC class cars that are between the safety car and the leader in MPC, which is now, after all that drama, Tazio Otis, remarkably, for Wolf Motorsports. He also is very much in championship contention coming into this weekend. He and Bart Wolf, they're only 5 points off the championship lead in car number 28. So
and Dave House is parked. So
Dave House is parked. John Brownson is just ahead of them on the road. So John Brownson right now is second position. I think that might be enough for him. Well, no, Stephen Dawes is in fourth, and he came in. I mean, here are the points coming into the weekend. Dave House had 143, Howard Jacobs 140, Stephen Dawes 139, Bart Wolf and Tazio Otis, who share that number 28 car, 138, John Brownson 137, Paul LaHaye 135, and Robert Masson 134. So just 9 points covering the top 7. And it's absolutely anybody's race. Many of those guys have had some problems during this race, but it's it's been a remarkable day or week so far for John Brownson in car number 34, but he's still there in the second position. Hopefully there's no damage, having locked up the brakes and hit the... It wasn't hard contact, was it, with the tail end of the number 11 that is back out therefore in the race, but several laps down.
It was not hard contact, but it was enough to lurch the 11 forward, and the white smoke was quite prolific from the 34. So he might have even flat spotted the Continental tires that he's on. It was that much of a moment, as we have Joel Janko into the pit lane.
Gosh, he's driven it round, has he?
He has.
Strolly.
Let's see. Amazing. He's going to stop in his pit box, and he just nearly missed his pit box, actually, as he continued on. The sound you hear in the background is the number 22 car of Stephen Dawes. And
he got that wave around.
Yep.
And that is extremely good news for Stephen, because that's going to put that means he remains on the lead lap. Number 77
and Howard
car
Jacobs
is, though, still, I believe, one lap down. Yes, he is, to the rest of the leaders in MPC.
Engine cover has come off of Joel Janko's car. He entered the closed pit lane, so if he can get back out there, or if Kenton Cook takes over from him, they will have to serve a follow-up drive-through penalty. His good news is Gerhard Watzinger is back out on the circuit, as is Michael Klemecki. Both of those cars having left the pit lane. So we haven't yet lost them. That's good. Glad to see them back out and circulating, as we are under an hour to go in the final race of the 2018 season for the IMSA Prototype Challenge presented by Mazda. Safety car lights have been turned off. We are getting ready to go back to green flag racing. It is Norma, but a slightly different order than it was the last time. Rodrigo Fluker in the number 74 leads Memo Gidley in the 88, and this is exactly what Memo wanted to see. He now has an opportunity when we go back to green flag racing to take the lead for the first time. TJ Fisher, our pole sitter, is in third. Then it is Dave Grant in fourth in the number 40 machine, and then Chris Wright, the champion-elect, in fifth. Green flag back out, and a great jump from Rodrigo Fluker, as Memo Gidley not going to let him get away, though. The three cars at the head of the field, exactly the same chassis, just slightly different setups from the two teams running in first and third, and then the 5 miles out in second.
Right, so there's the NPC category at the moment today is led by car number 28. Is a lap down overall, but in 14th position. Car number 28, Tazzy Ortiz. Right behind him, or a couple of cars behind him on the racetrack, is John Brownson, car number 34. Paul LaHaye, car number 36, is right behind John Brownson, and close behind him also is Stephen Dawes. Those four cars are all on the same lap in the lead for MPC, as we see now TJ Fisher trying to make a move on Memo Gidley to turn 6, not able to make that pass stick.
And that was a result of Memo Gidley trying to make a move on our race leader, Rodrigo Fluker, as they came through the S's. I've got bad news for two championship runners. Rob Hodis in the number 51, whose day started off as poorly as it could, entered a closed pit. You are not allowed to come back into the pit lane as soon as the green flag is flown. You must complete that first lap. Well, Howard Jacobs in the number 77 MPC car comes in second in the championship this weekend. Remember, did exactly the same thing. So effectively, they will have to serve a drive-through penalty once they leave the pit lane. Terrible news for those two.
Yeah, that was a bit of a blunder. Who's that coming?
Couple more cars coming into the pit lane. Very well spotted, Jeremy. A lot of cars coming into the pit lane.
And a couple of these guys. Number 3 is the only car on the lead lap to come into the pits. He was in the 6th position, and then several cars a lap down. Number 4, number 55.
The 7 came in, others. The 60 of Bruce Hamilton, the 42 of Jim Garrett is in the pit lane, the 17 of Matthew Dickin, the 28 of Tazzy Ortiz, John Brownson in the 34. So we have a lot of those blue P's on the timing screen signifying pit stops are being made. All these drivers are okay, by the way. They waited for the window to open and for the pit lane to be open once again. We'll keep an eye on those stops as we watch what's going out on track for you, though, because Rodrigo Fluker, Memo Gidley, and TJ Fisher separated by 1 second from first to third. The gap is almost non-existent as we have a three-way battle for the lead of this race, and the car in second really looking racy today, Jeremy. Memo Gidley doing a fantastic job in that 5 miles out, Norma.
Yeah, and he'll want to stay out there as long as he can. He'd love to lead a lap or two if he can. We've got 54 minutes remaining in the race as we see the...
TJ Fisher into the pit lane.
Yeah, okay, fine. So that's the third place car onto pit lane. And they have to make their pit stops before, what, 40 minutes remaining in this race. So they've got another 12, 13 minutes, which would be another 8 laps or so before they need to make a pit stop.
TJ Fisher comes down the pit lane, crawling to his pit box. He'll be handing over to Austin McCusker in that car, the duo who got a win earlier this year back at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park after some brilliant strategy that won them the race. They came into the pit lane at the perfect time, and it resulted in them going home with the first place trophy. But for Rodrigo Fluker, who will be handing over to Anthony Simone, he cannot afford to think about anything, because if he slips up even the slightest bit, Memo Gidley is going to snatch that lead away and not look back at all. Dave Grant is in third, a further 7 seconds behind this leading duo in the number 40. And then is Cameron Castles, who stayed out on track so far. Remember, Cameron not sharing the car this weekend, will be doing all the driving himself, but still has to come in and make that pit stop. Memo Gidley just sizing up Fluker. You get the feeling that Gidley is sort of planning and watching. He's a very, very smart driver, is Gidley, and he knows that he's going to have to plan a long way back to make the pass on a car that's pretty much the same as what he's in, except for a few little setup changes. We have 2 different teams fighting for the lead of this race. We've already had 53 minutes elapses. We are down to 52 to go. And it's anyone's game. Paul LaHaye leads in MPC, by the way, in the number 36 car, ahead of Stephen Dawes in the number 22, as neither of them have yet pitted. Now there's a driver out of the car. I believe that's Corey Lewis, standing next to the number 17, who is not over the wall. Oh, he was manning the fire bottle. Corey Lewis, who's about to get in and drive the number 17, was doing the fire bottle duties while the rest of the crew was putting fuel in the car. Love seeing that sort of camaraderie going on. Yes, I will drive your race car, but I will also do the dirty work. Rodrigo Fluker, Memo Gidley, 0.3 of a second between the leading pair. Love seeing this too. And
there is this minimum pit stop time for these teams. It's just for safety. This is a feeder category. They're not trying to make the teams have to do competitive refueling with the risk of errors that might occur. So there's plenty of time for these cars to be refueled, for the drivers to make their change, have a little bit of a drink, bit of a stretch of the fingers, make sure they're nice and relaxed before they go back out on the racetrack again. But for these 2 leaders who are staying out there, Rodrigo Fluker, he's got his mirrors absolutely full of Memo Gidley. Gidley, of course, he's a great story all the way around. I mean, he was born on a boat in the Pacific Ocean, so he's kind of Mexican-American. He was born off the coast of Mexico. Yeah, he came up through this sport the hard way. He doesn't have any family money at all, but he's made it all the way to the IndyCar series, finished on the podium for Chip Ganassi Racing a couple of times, had a huge crash at
Daytona.
At Road America in the IndyCar, which he got away from. But then, more critically, 3 or 4 years ago now, had a massive crash at Daytona during the Rolex 24 Hours and was in hospital for many months. Was in excruciating pain for a couple of years. He's finally got those problems resolved, and to see him back at the wheel of a race car is just fantastic. And he remains close to his roots. He was an avid karter, remains so in Northern California, and also is an accomplished captain out on the seas as well, following in the footsteps of his parents. He does a lot of boat racing, yacht racing actually, in the Bay Area.
Fantastic.
Cool guy.
Very. And always has a smile on his face. Always a very happy person to be around.
Nowadays, particularly. Having got all those problems behind him, yes.
Paul LaHaye is having his hands full trying to get around Gerhard Watzinger, who is several laps down Paul Hay, the NPC leader, who's not yet come into the pit lane, does manage to make the pass. And by the way, just to follow up on those two cars that came into the pit lane as soon as the safety car pulled back in, as Watzinger goes back around the Hay, so not giving up that position, at least on track, even though he is a lap down. The 51 and the 77, so Rob Hodis's K2R Motorsports machine that has now been taken over by Garrett Grist, and the 77 Performance Tech car, the NPC runner, that was started by Howard Jacobs and was assumed by James French. Both will have penalties of stop plus 60 seconds for working on a car in a closed pit lane. Ouch. That hurts. Especially for Howard Jacobs, who came into the race second in the NPC Championship. And then, of course, we've got Rob Hodis, who we've talked about a lot today, who started the race as the Masters leader, has given that up as Memo Gidley comes into the pits.
Yeah, he gives up the chance of trying to lead the race for the first time, so it will be Rodrigo Fluker who can carry on. He can carry on for another 7 or 8 minutes. Yeah, he doesn't need to come in just yet. I'm surprised Memo came in at this stage, but yeah, the pit lane at least is clear, so that's going to help. There's not going to be any traffic in the pit lane. He's going to have to work past, and a couple other cars coming as well. Number 40, which is David Grant. He'll hand over to his brother Keith for the second stint. Both of those two long-time runners in the Atlantic Championship, open wheel cars, and car number 51, Rob Hoders,
serving his penalty.
Yes, that's right.
He'll be in
Garrett
for a
Grist
while.
Now.
Yeah, another Canadian. So Memo Gidley handing over to Canadian Charles Chi, and also Garrett Grist, who took over from Rob Hodis. Garrett is from Ontario, so both of them are from north of the border. And we also have the 11 of Kyle Masson into the pit lane. I would imagine this would be the long pit stop. Remember, Kyle has already come into the pit lane. They put new front Continental tires on that car a while back. As our leader, Rodrigo Fluker, continues to circulate, has not yet done his pit stop. 36 laps complete. Will he dive into the pit lane? No, he stays out for at least one more. So we were at 47 minutes and 50 seconds to go. And our leader still has about 3 minutes before he needs to come in so that his teammate can get out there and do the minimum drive time.
There's number 47 car. It's already made its pit stop. It's now in the 8th position overall. He's a couple of laps behind the overall leader, of course, because he's made his pit stop and the overall leader has not.
Cameron Castles is still out on track. Hasn't done his pit stop yet in the number 75 machine. He is running second on the racetrack as Lance Wilsey comes down the pit lane now in his number 33 Americana liveried Ligier. So Cameron Castles running second. He does not have to hand over to another driver, so he doesn't need to worry about that 40-minute minimum drive time, but he does need to worry about the whole refueling thing because the car will run out of fuel eventually. Car 18, John DeAngelis, is getting a penalty for speeding on the pit lane. It was 5 kilometers an hour over, which means drive-through. They tend to give warnings if it's 1, 2, or 3 kilometers an hour and it's your first time, your first discretion with the pit lane speeding issue, which is a big issue here at Road Atlanta because the downhill area coming into the pit lane just sort of encourages you forward a little bit. Gravity is not your friend in this situation, and drivers have been practicing all weekend and practicing getting penalties as well all weekend, learning what not to do as they put the limiter on coming into the pit lane. It's not only been a problem in this series, but some of the other IMSA support series as well. As Bart Wolf, now driving the number 28, sees James French in his rearview mirror, although they are separated by a lap. French trying to drive around Wolf to get his lap back and hopefully get Howard Jacobs back up into contention. It has not been the easiest day for that number 77 machine. Not the easiest weekend, in all honesty. As James French does look down the inside, he'll have the optimum line for 10A, but there's a LMP3 car there as well, and Wolf goes to turn in, notices he can't because French was there. French makes the pass, but now for Stephen Dawes and the number 22 behind them, I think that's Stephen Dawes, isn't it? Yes, who has the thought of going around Wolf. So Wolf goes from being the first NPC car in sight in the camera shot to being second and nearly third. The leader, Rodrigo Fluker, still out on circuit. We have Austin McCusker driving the 47 Motorsports, the sister car. And finally, Fluker comes into the pit lane. Does Cameron Castle stay out and become our leader? That will be the next question. He was about 32 seconds down the road from Fluker at the last timing mark. And Rodrigo has done a really top job today in the race so far. Here goes the 60 of Bruce Hamilton. I'm just waiting to see what Cameron Castles does. And does he stay out? He does. Race leader, Cameron Castles.
Well, yeah, next time around he'll take the lead because Fluker across the start-finish line in the pit lane. So he will lead lap 39. We've got 44 minutes remaining in this race, and Cameron Castles will be our leader next time around. Even if he comes onto pit lane, he'll be credited with leading that lap. And for Cameron, that's the first time he has actually led a lap. You know, we've had a whole bunch of different leaders during this season. Most laps have been led by Austin McCusker actually over the season. 50 laps in, that's the car number 47 that will be taken over from TJ Fisher, or has taken over from TJ Fisher.
Gerhard Watzinger goes for a spin just before the bridge. It's got quite a few people out at that location, the braking point for 10A. He turned into 10B and just lost the rear end. Very odd situation, but manages to not collect anyone else and get the car fired up, pointed back in the right direction, and continues on. So Paul LaHaye has yet to pit in the number 36 One Motorsport machine, as has Stephen Dawes in the number 22. Those two cars separated by just under 4 seconds. Fighting for the lead of the race on the track, but of course they have to come in and do their mandatory pit stop. Cameron Castles into the pit lane. So he will be credited, as Jeremy rightly says, as the race leader, even though he is in the pits. And he crosses the start-finish line now, just below our feet. There we go. Cameron Castles on top of the timing sheet.
So he will lead lap 40.
Excellent. Rodrigo Fluker still in the pit lane. His teammate, Austin McCusker, out on track, the number 47 Motorsports machine, trying to make up a little bit of ground, although there was such a great battle at the start of the race between the three Normas. I'm interested to see how it all shakes out once everybody gets back out on track. Cameron Castles out of his number 75 Ligier for Performance Tech Motorsport, jumps over the wall, looked quite spry, quite happy, I would say. Cameron pleased with the job he's doing so far, and we are pleased with it as well. Austin McCusker crosses the start-finish line. And the question will be, Jeremy, is does he re-inherit the lead that his teammate had from the start of the race and then lost to the 74 car? Do you think McCusker can get back to the front? It's going to be close.
Yeah, it should be fairly close. I mean, the interesting thing is that the number 47 car has now been out there for a few laps, Austin McCusker, and turning lap times around was a 20.2. So it's going to be, you know, the question of who has clear track now, I think, and doesn't get held up by the traffic. There is a number 47 car, that is Austin McCusker, currently shown in the 4th position because there's still a couple of the NPC cars have yet to make their first pit stops. Number 36, Paul LaHaye, leads the way in NPC, only 4 seconds or so ahead of Stephen Dawes in car number 22 for Performance Tech.
Great burnout from the 74 machine. Anthony Simone now behind the wheel as the crew member was down on eye level, counting down 3, 2, 1, go, and he nailed it. Perfect job. They do have to be careful with a bit of wheel spin though, and that you don't exceed the speed limit when you're leaving the pit lane. We have seen that in practice this weekend, as Paul LaHaye credited as our leader this time around, Jeremy?
He will be, I think, next time around, yeah.
Very cool.
But if he doesn't come on the pit, well, he'll have to come on to... No, he won't have to come on the pit lane. There's no
time for
he's
him.
not sharing the car, is he? So
nope.
He's driving it solo, so he can stay out as long as he likes, as much fuel as he has, he can stay out there.
Paul LaHaye and Stephen Dawes can enjoy this little bit of running. They can take their time. An hour and 45-minute long race, of which we have 40 minutes and 15 seconds remaining. That's it for the season. These guys who have had a very long year. It began all the way back in January at the Roar before the 24 at Daytona International Raceway. Then we went to Sebring International Raceway, Daytona International Speedway, from Sebring in the middle of March to Barber Motorsport Park in the middle of April. Then north of the border, Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, first week of July. Then Virginia International Raceway, where it was mixed conditions for that race, the middle of August. And here, the Petite Mall weekend at Road Atlanta to wrap things up. We hand out the trophies at the end of this one, so this is the race that you're going to be thinking about until we come back to next January.
So number 22 car Stephen Dawes stays out and will lead lap 41. Number 36 car that had been ahead of number 22 comes in to make his pit stop. That's Paul LaHaye on this lap, so he will not quite lead a lap officially because he ducks on the pit lane, and Stephen Dawes is able to go past him and lead this lap before he makes his mandatory pit stop.
Cameron Castle's back out of the pit lane as well, and Stephen Dawes is a great story. He did a driving school and loved racing so much that he wanted to become more involved in it. So he started racing street cars at track days at Sebring International Raceway. From upstate New York originally is Stephen. And he decided he wanted to learn more about racing, so he joined the Performance Tech Motorsport pit crew. He worked with them in 2015 and 2016 and started driving last year. In this category, he was 4th in the championship in the Masters class as we had last year, and potentially could be champion this year, which is just a great, heartwarming story. And he's also a huge fan of Jeff Gordon, so getting to meet him last year at the Rolex was a highlight for sure. Now, the sister car to that number 22, one of the sister cars, I should say, under the Performance Tech stable, is the number 77, Howard Jacobs and James French. They came into the pit lane after the safety car, so they followed it in when the pits were closed. They received a penalty for working on the car in a closed pits. It is a stop plus 60 seconds. Our timing screen is saying that they have still not served that penalty, Jeremy, and race control will not be amused with that.
Who's that, sorry?
The 77.
77, oh right, yeah, okay.
They normally pull down the penalty warning after it's been served, and it's still there, and it has been there for a long time.
Yeah, they'll be arguing that decision then, and there's some confusion at a couple of races ago, so when they could make their pit stops, and I thought they got that clarified, but it doesn't appear to be the case. Now look, let's go back to what's happening here out in the race. We've got the leader will be after these pit stops. It could be Austin McCusker in car number 47, because he got out ahead of the number 74 car just after the pit stops were completed, and number 74 car with now Anthony Simone at the wheel, just been overtaken on this last lap by Keith Grant in car number 40. So with 42 laps completed, world leaders, here comes number 40 car past us to complete that lap, and he's pulling away from the number 74. The number 60 car is a lap down behind those contenders.
And for the 47 car, they've had a fairly good season, as the 88 of Charles Chi goes for a brief off-track excursion and gets it back, pointed the right direction. 2 second-place finishes for the 47. Austin McCusker has driven the entire season. TJ Fisher has been an addition. He did not finish during the rain race at Barber Motorsports Park, and up north of the borders, we mentioned a bit earlier, they called the strategy right. They got the win. It was not a great race at Virginia International Raceway the last time out, though. It was their second worst finish of the season with a 6th place. So they are really hoping to come out of a win from this contest here today, so they can think about that for the entire length of the off season. And Austin McCusker, who entered today's race 2nd in the championship standings, doing a great job of cementing that position, because if he wins the race, nobody else behind him can get ahead of him in points. Austin McCusker, Keith Grant, the number 40, and then Anthony Simone in the 74. So Aligier up into the top 3 for the first time since the start of this race. Nick Janssen is in 4th in the 30 machine from ESM, Extreme Speed Motorsports, that he shares with champion-elect Chris Wright. And then Cameron Castle's back in 5th in his Ligier, leading the Masters class. Stephen Dawes still yet to pit. so he has a one-lap advantage over everyone else.
On his previous lap, on lap 42, he set his best lap of the race, did Stephen Dawes, taking full advantage of the fact that these NPC cars can run a long way on a tank of fuel. So he's out there making hay while the sun literally shines here, and is leading the race. And overall, you still have to make his pit stop, of course, but he's running a good pace, and he's well clear. The second place in the class remains number 36 car, having made his mandatory pit stop.
I didn't realize that Nick Janssen was a postman because he is hauling the mail, Jeremy. He's did a 119.5, a faster lap the last time around than just about anyone else out there, except for the Aussie, Scott Andrews, who did a 118.6. The leaders are doing 120s, 121s, and then there's Nick Janssen, who's trying desperately to catch them back up. He's about 30 seconds off the lead. He is 11 seconds behind 19 seconds behind the next car in class. That would be Anthony Simone. 34 minutes remaining, so it's a little bit too late for them to try and make up more position unless there is some sort of outside assistance, i.e. safety car or somebody else makes a mistake. But Nick Janssen doing what we expect from him, being super fast.
True, and the guy who's also doing a great job there is Keith Grant, who's running now in third place overall. It's still Stephen Dawes that leads in the NPC car.
He's on the pit lane.
He's on the pit lane finally. Okay, fine. So that'll be lap 45 completed by Stephen, and he'll be credited with leading this lap. So really good job by him. And he'll have had a lot of fun out there. In the meantime, Austin McCusker is stretching out his lead now. He's got 5 seconds over Keith Grant in car number 40, who's really doing a fine job pulling away from Anthony Simone, who's a long way clear of Nick Janssen, who's pretty much on his own there, who will be in 4th position once the pit stops are completed. So he's already made up 1 place during the pit stops. Yeah, he's got past one of the 5 miles out cars. That's number 88, Charles Chi, who's now under pressure from his teammate in car number 87. That's Nick Colivas.
And drive-through penalty for car number 51. Rob Hodis started that car, handed over to Garrett Grist. Incident responsibility with the 88 of Charles Chi that you were just talking about. That is still not a good day for that car. As Austin McCusker, 5 seconds clear of Keith Grant, 7 further seconds clear of Anthony Simone, and then a long way back to Nick Janssen. So again, after the pit stops, things starting to shake out. In MPC, our leader in the pit lane is Stephen Dawes, which means that Paul LaHaye out on the circuit in the pink number 36 machine leads Bart Wolf in the blue number 28, and then John Brownson in the 34 ahead of James French in the 77, who still has not served his penalty for working on the car in a closed pit lane. Gerhard Votzinger is 5th, John DeAngelis is 6th, and Robert Masson is 7th. Now, Robert Masson has completed, his car has completed 40 laps, as opposed to Paul LaHaye, who's done 43. So their shot of a championship, Jeremy, out the window.
There goes on a new race leader. On to complete lap 46 is Austin McCusker. The 60 car of Tony Kazimitz is a lap down in the 10th position. It will become 9th once he completes enough laps to move past number 22 car, which is still on pit lane, serving its mandatory pit stop.
And action has been taken. The black flag was just waved at car number 77, James French. So race control not amused with them failing to serve their penalty for working on a car in a closed pit lane. That was the first that I had seen of it, as the 88 of Charles Chi goes for another rotation. Fire out the exhaust pipes as he gets it going again, and pointed back in the right direction. Whoa, pulls across the track right in front of our leader, Austin McCusker, coming out of 5B. And oh my goodness, that was a moment as Chi is driving. Well, he's on the circuit and he's getting back up to speed again, but that was not the brightest move of an opportunity for when to get moving again. Just looped it all on his own. The rears seemed to lock up. He pinched the apex a little bit too much coming off of the turn, and gosh, that would have woken up Austin. We had a moment earlier on where driving the number 74, or no, it was TJ Fisher, was his teammate, had to take evasive action going around an MPC car. And now Austin McCusker has just got his shot of adrenaline for the day. Eyes a little bit wider this morning now. I would imagine if you take his helmet off, he looks a bit like an owl. Austin McCusker, 6-second lead over Keith Grant in the number 40, and then Anthony Simone in that 74. Cameron Castles continues to lead in that number 75 Ligier from Performance Tech, doing exactly what he needs to do to have a shot at the championship for the Masters category. And Stephen Dawes now leaving the pit lane, which means that everyone has served their pit stops. And once we give him a lap to filter back into the traffic, we'll see just where he stands up versus Paul LaHaye, who is presently in second position in the MPC category. We're going to have a good fight on our hands for the end of this race, Jeremy, and ultimately for the championship.
Yes, yeah, it's been certainly an interesting race, certainly changing fortunes, and it's still difficult to predict who's going to win what at this stage. But certainly Cameron Castles, what a great job he is doing, running in the 5th position overall in car number 75, driving that Performance Tech Ligier solo this season, apart from that one race where he shared it with Trent Hinman. But he's doing exactly what he needs to do here. And it could well be that he could come out with a championship at the end of the day.
Our leader, Austin McCusker, thinking about going down the inside of one of the Normas that is a lap down, driven by Nick Colvius, the number 87 machine, and decided not to because he didn't believe that Nick had seen him into turn 1. So means Austin will have to be patient as they go through the S's until he gets a passing opportunity along the back straight. The car in second, though, Keith Grant, just getting passed a moment or two ago by Tonis Kasmets, who is fighting hard in the number 60 machine to try and catch back up to the competition. And although chances of a win are likely out the window for that number 60 machine, Tonis still wants the next position up. He wants to finish 7th, 6th, 5th as far as he can. Yeah,
he's a lap down to the other guys, that's the problem. He's certainly catching number 87 car of Nick Colivas pretty quickly. Colivas is the last car on the lead lap and probably about to go a lap down in any moment now. Nick Colivas, born in Zimbabwe, he's an orthopedic surgeon from Northern California. He started racing about 10 years ago in vintage Formula Ford. I remember racing against him actually when I had the Malik. He was racing a Titan, I think, and old Formula Ford car there. So there goes our race leader, Austin McCusker. So Nick Colivas has gone a lap down, and next on the road, not too far behind him and closing rapidly, is the number 60 car of Tonis Kasmets. The 51 has gone off again, but this time it's at the opposite end of the course, coming into 5, and it is Garrett Grist, who is deep in the gravel. This might be a safety car as turn 6, excuse me, as we had a drive-through penalty for speeding for Stephen Dawes, so he drops back down into 3rd. But if we get a no one wants to win this championship in MPC, do they?
No, they really don't.
Big off for Grist.
Garrett dropped his left 2 wheels just slightly off the edge of the road and onto the grass, and it threw him sideways and backwards into the gravel. And indeed, we have a full course caution, which means that the pits are closed. Shouldn't affect anybody. Everyone has already been in. And we also have a spin for the 87. See, we were just talking about Nick, and he got so excited, went for a slight rotation. Hopefully he hasn't high-sided it, as the safety car has been scrambled and everyone has been grouped back up together. Well, you know what, Jeremy? Nick Janssen just got the reprieve he wanted. He's been quicker than most people in front of him. Yep, yeah, certainly. You know, he'd been chasing down Anthony Simone. He's pulled in. Well, he was about 19 seconds behind him. That gap is down to 7 seconds now. In the course of a half a dozen laps, he's pulled up over 10 seconds. Nick Janssen over Anthony Simone. Not surprised at that, but Anthony Simone running there in the 3rd position. Keith Grant, though, this is going to give him an opportunity to chase after Austin McCusker, and it's been certainly a good day for the 47 Motorsports team. They had a good pit stop. They had some pit stop problems earlier in the season, which cost Austin McCusker a win. The youngster from Glen Head on Long Island, New York, driving beautifully this season, making a move into sports cars. He was did some racing on the Mazda Road to Indy, raced in the F4 Championship.
raced in the F2000 Championship Series on the East Coast, and then grasped this opportunity to move into the LMP3 category, and he's certainly making the most of it. Already has won one race this season, has been one of the top contenders right from the very beginning. It's Austin McCusker, and he qualified the car on the pole position for the opening race of the season at Daytona. That was a pretty good feather in his cap.
Yeah.
Led a lot of that race, but unfortunately they had a bit of a miscue in a pit stop and ended up finishing second with what had been there a dominant car. Was able to make amends happily and win at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, and this afternoon looking to get win number 2 if he can. But Keith Grant is a veteran campaigner. He's also been racing in one of the Formula Race Promotion Series, the Atlantic Championship, over the last several years. Had an awful lot of success, he and his brother David. That Polestar motor racing entry run out of Northern Ohio. So the Tennessee brothers are running very nicely indeed from Germantown in Tennessee.
So car 87 is off at turn 7. Car 51 is off at turn 6. They are two completely separate incidents. 87 has managed to continue, so the norm is going. Yes, all on his own. And then
before the yellow came out or afterwards?
Before the yellow came out. And Grist is moving, and our IMSA safety crew working hard to try and get some of the gravel out of the side of the Ligier of Garrett Grist. And it's really a shame, Jeremy, because he had just set the overall fastest Sector 1 time when he went off in Sector 2. Yeah. So you never know. There you go, your moment.
Yeah, and a couple laps before that, it's at the fastest lap of the race. It was many laps down already, of course, with all the dramas that Rob Hoder's had in the opening portions of the race.
Yes.
But looking to make a point there was Garrett, but unfortunately it's kind of backfired and he's off the road and in the gravel.
Well, he did make a point.
You did make a point, yeah. Yep. Fastest lap of the race, that's always a feather in your cap.
Yep.
So we're still going to have we'll now have 6 cars on the lead lap with that spin for Nick Colivas. Must have been just as he was being lapped, actually, I think, and under pressure from the number 60 car of Tony's Kazimierz. We didn't see that happen, did we? We didn't see him spin off, but
no.
He was on the tail end lead lap, but being closed on by actually just been lapped, hadn't he, by
yes.
by the race leader. But it's right after that he spun himself off the road. So that's going to leave just 6 cars on the lead lap: number 47, number 40, number 74, number 30, number 75. The Masters leader is Cameron Castles, and number 3 of Max Hanratty. Tony's Kazimierz in car number 60. In that Volvo racing machine. He's going to be the first to cars 1 lap down. Tony East is another driver with a massive amount of experience in all sorts of cars. Charles Chi is doing a nice job there, actually, having taken over from Memo Gidley.
Did a couple of rotations, but never stuck it in the fence.
No, he didn't hit anything or anybody else. In car number 88, they runs in 8th position. Scott Andrews, he's one that certainly going to be one of the fastest cars on the track at the restart. Having taken over from Jerry Crouch. Jerry must have had a drama in the early stage. I don't know what that was. Maybe he had I think he must have had, he made a pit stop, didn't he?
He had a drive-through.
Was that a drive-through? Yeah.
Yes.
So he worked his way back very nicely, did Jerry. Great to see him back in a car of that JDC Miller Motorsport entry. He had some surgery earlier in the year. He was supposed to be racing in Europe, but wasn't able to do so. But Scott Andrews now at the wheel of that car. He's going to be running in the 9th position in car number 55, but he's going to be fast. Also right behind him is going to be the IMSA Motorsports machine of car number 4. That's Zachary Robichaud, who we've already seen win 1 race this weekend in the Porsche GT3 Cup Challenge yesterday. He's going to have another race right after this, actually, isn't he? Or pretty much later on.
Yeah, right after this.
Yeah, right after this in that raw speed entry. So he's going to be running in the 10th position. He's another fast car. Right behind me is Corey Lewis in car number 17.
Who's running in the Petit Le Mans.
Who is running in Petit Le Mans. And then the other 2 cars on the lead, to the 1 lap down to the overall leader are Lance Willsey in car number 33 and Nick Colivas, who did get that car back underway again in car number 87.
And in MPC, Paul LaHaye leads the way in the number 36 machine. That is the pink car, ahead of
Keith. Yeah, got past Keith Blanton on that. Yeah, you're right.
So Paul LaHaye is ahead of John Brownson now. Then will be Stephen Dawes. The 87 is not moving, Jeremy. We are back to a full course caution to try and retrieve that car as the rear wheels spin, and there is no gain happening. So Nick Janssen will now be up into 2nd because we are within the final 15 minutes. It should be a quick yellow.
Number 34 car of John Brownson and managed to get past Stephen Dawes on that last lap. and where does that make that? That's going to move him ahead of him in the championship, isn't it? Because it's basically whoever wins. Paul LaHaye is still leading, so if he can stay there, he can win this championship, which would be pretty remarkable. Paul LaHaye, he's had a couple of podium finishes. He was second at Sebring. He was third at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. He came into the points, so in 6th place. But if he can stay where he is, I think he's looking pretty good.
Well, and Paul LaHaye ran a partial season last year. His best finish was 5th at Watkins Glen, so that would be quite the improvement, going from a partial season one year to winning the championship the next. No lack of excitement here in the IMSA Prototype Challenge presented by Mazda, that's for sure.
Oh,
you get your money's worth.
And Tony's Kazimit's there. He'll be ruined. In fact, he wasn't able to find a way past Austin McCusker at that restart, so he's still going to be a lap down, and with Scott Andrews on his tail as well. So that battle is now for 6th and 7th, with the dramas of the other guys behind him. And Cam Castles, there he is, sitting there in the 5th position overall. He's kind of mired in some traffic. He lost out. He was overtaken by Max Hanratty just before this caution period came out again, but he's running in the 5th position overall. And so far as the Masters class is concerned, he came in, what, 8 points behind Rob Hoders. So Rob's pretty much out of contention. So what's the order in Masters? It's Castles, Dean Baker will be 2nd, Matt Dicken will be 3rd in the number 42 car, driven by Robbie Foley. He's 2 laps down in 13th position overall. Behind him will be Nick Colivas, and then Rob Hoders behind that. So that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So yeah, Cameron Castles, if he can stay where he is, and there's, I'm not going to say if there's no more dramas, because that ain't going to happen.
Don't do it, Jeremy. There's 11 minutes and 15 seconds to go. Don't do it.
But in NPC again, ludicrously close. Paul LaHaye leads by nothing over John Brownson, and Stephen Dawes hanging out right there as well. And Bart Wolf. No, he was off the road, wasn't he?
He was off the road, yes.
Is he back on again?
Yes.
Yes, he is.
Yeah, he managed to continue.
That is excellent news. So he still remains in contention there. They are a lap ahead of the number of Gerhard Watzinger, number 32. So we've got number 42 is 14th position overall, 2 laps off the ultimate pace. He'll be 13th actually after the 87 with the 87 car out. I mean, 74 car, yes, excuse me, 74 car on pit lane. Is it still on pit lane? Yes, it is, okay. So number 36 car will be leading NPC, and number 34, number 22, and number 28. All of those 4 cars on the same lap as each other.
And all 4 of them with a fair shot at winning the championship. So this will be extra exciting.
Yes.
All right, guys, you've got 10 minutes. Forget the rest of the season. This is where you win the championship. No pressure. That'll be nice and exciting. So for the lead of the race, with 10 minutes to go, we are still behind the safety car in the final round of the IMSA Prototype Challenge presented by Mazda. Race of the season. It's been a good one so far. It's been a lot of fun to watch that number 87 car, by the way, into the pit lane as the prototype class split is taking place on this lap. Austin McCusker, our leader, in the number 47, ahead of Nick Janssen in the 30, and then Keith Grant in car number 40. Maxwell Hanratty is 4th in the number 3, Cameron Castles 5th. Our champion-elect, his car is 2nd. How badly do you think Chris Wright would like to get a win to round out the championship season? I think he might be on the radio to Nick saying, okay, push now, push now.
Well, yeah, no, Nick's been, he knows all about winning, doesn't he?
Yes.
And he will certainly be trying to put the pressure on Austin McCusker. The bad news, though, for Nick Janssen, he's got 2 lapped cars between himself and the overall race leader. That's the battle for, what is the battle for 6th and 7th positions between Tony Kazimit's and Scott Andrews. Both of them are very fast drivers, so Nick's going to struggle to find a way past those 2.
He is. But it'll be fun to watch.
No question about that.
Lights are out on the safety car, which means we are going back to green this time around. The car is bunching up as they come down the back straight. no advantage for any car in particular, as Nick Janssen has his right-hand turn signal turned on. It's been that way for quite a while, but maybe he's just using it as an indication to the drivers ahead of him, hoping that they notice he's got that on to say, guys, I'm going to go around you on this side. Please move over. It would be nice to see a little bit of sportsmanship from the cars a lap down. I understand they're fighting their own battle, but maybe just move over a little bit, let Nick through, give it a fair shot at the win. Doubt that would happen though. As they come around 10A, make the right-hand turn into 10B, come up underneath the bridge, and that is when the signal will be given and the green flag will wave once more as Nick Janssen has to fight his way back up to the leader, Austin McCusker, in the number 47 Motorsports Norma. McCusker is going to be hard-pressed to give up that lead, though, as further down the field, there is a look, and that was Keith Grant thinking about going up the inside of Nick Janssen, and Nick says, nope, thanks, I would like to keep this position, please. There's a move by, Robbie Foley has contact with the 88 of Charles Chi. That was not the brightest move by Foley, I'm afraid.
Came from a long way behind there, nowhere even close to Charles Chi. Charles Chi clearly there, the innocent victim. That was a very strange move from Robbie Foley.
Quite an experienced driver.
Yeah, and Robbie, he was already 2 laps down, so it wasn't a battle even for position on the racetrack.
Nope.
He wasn't going to gain anything from that, and why he saw the need to make that move, I'm not quite sure. It's very uncharacteristic for Robbie Foley.
It is, and I'm afraid he wouldn't make that corner if Charles Chi hadn't been there. He would have driven straight off the racetrack, so that should be something that race control looks at and makes a decision on in fairly rapid order. It is John Brownson who is chasing down Paul LaHaye still, as we get an opportunity to see Robbie Foley again. Yeah, terribly optimistic move by Robbie. Gotta say, I don't know what he was thinking there. He doesn't normally make those sorts of mistakes, but Charles Chi hopefully able to get things moving again. And
however, in the meantime,
back on the ranch. Is it still Austin McCusker leading, Jeremy?
It is.
Excellent.
But he's got the 3-lap cars between himself and the second place car of Nick Janssen. That's the battle for 6th, 7th and 8th. Forgot to mention Zach Robichon, didn't I?
Yes.
So it's number 60, 55 and 4 who are running pretty much nose to tail, I think, in 2nd, 3rd and 4th on the road. And they are ahead of Nick Janssen. But Austin McCusker here, in terms of time, has a nice handy advantage over Nick Janssen in 2nd place. But there's that battle, 3-car battle behind him that is waging on.
Well, and for the 30 machine, if they can bring it home in the current position, which is 2nd, that would be every single race finished on the podium. And that in itself is an impressive record for Chris Wright. A pair of 3rds to start the season, a pair of wins in the middle of the season, and a 2nd place finish, a pair of 2nd place finishes. That's a good run for this first season of the endurance form of this championship with the longer form races. Paul LaHaye in the pink car, with Michael Klemecki several laps down in the blue and white car next in shot. Then Gerhard Watzinger again laps down in the black and red machine. And behind them, James French in the number 77, who, as far as I know, never came in to serve that penalty as...
no, he did.
He did?
Yes,
okay.
I'm sure he did. Yeah.
So Klemecki passes LaHaye. That is a position on track, but not in the running order. So Paul LaHaye should just let him go, but he does not.
John Brownson now has got past number 36. So John Brownson leads in NPC. And here is the battle for what is now second place. 3 wide coming into turn 1.
And James French does it. James French comes from 4th to 2nd in one turn.
No, actually, because he's a lap down to these other contenders, in fact. Yes.
Okay. I'll get a little bit less excited, but that was a great pass by James French to take advantage of 2 cars going into turn 1. That is not something many people would be brave enough to leave the foot to the floor. James French is one of those people, though. This was the only race last year, Jeremy, the only track at which Performance Tech Motorsport did not win on their way to a Prototype Challenge Championship in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. A bit of unfinished business for both Kyle Masson and James French coming into the race this weekend. That's something that they'll have to worry about for the 10-hour race, as incident responsibility is placed squarely on the shoulders of Robbie Foley for that crash with the number 88. It will be a drive-through penalty for the 42. Completely agree with race control's decision on that one, as Paul LaHaye and Bart Wolf are battling back and forth for 2nd. Bart Wolf taking advantage and going around, which means that now the 28 is up into 2nd. And although with John Brownson leading, oh, I don't know, it's close, because Wolf and Otis were 1 point up on Brownson and Wolf and Otis. So that means things right now would be going the way of John Brownson, but we have 3 minutes to go. Anything could happen at this point in the race. There could be a giant fluffy pink cat that walks out across the track and just knocks cars off. Jeremy, I wouldn't be surprised if that started happening, because we've seen it all in this championship today.
Just absolutely incredible, it really is.
Oh, it makes you giddy when you see this kind of racing where you really don't know what's going to happen until the checkered flag flies.
It's been a bizarre race. It hasn't been always wheel to wheel necessarily, but there's been lots of excitement, and there continues to be.
Austin McCusker is our leader, 5 seconds over Nick Janssen in the number 30 car for Extreme Speed Motorsport that he shares with our champion-elect Chris Wright. In third, it is Keith Grant. He is only 1 second behind Nick Janssen, so that position is still up in the air. Second place still could go the way of the 40 machine. It is not a done deal for the Extreme Speed Motorsports yet. John Brownson is our leader in the MPC category, ahead of Bart Wolf and then Paul LaHaye. Stephen Dawes is still on that lap though. He is a further 5 seconds behind LaHaye, so he's got quite a bit of time to make up if he wants a real shot at it. We are down to the 2-minute warning.
There goes John Brownson across the line to complete lap 61. And we've got to wait for the second place car. Those two cars both lap down. There's Bart Wolf in second position across the line now, and behind him is car number 36 in third place.
Oh my goodness. So McCusker has stretched his gap now 6.5 seconds with 1:40 to go in the 2018 season. McCusker looking for his second win of the year, alongside TJ Fisher, who put the car on pole yesterday, let's not forget, and did a good job off the start of the race, but it was his teammate who really took control of the show. That was Rodrigo Fluker. He was the one we were watching. A bit of misfortune for that car, because they had some drama. The car came into the pit lane with Anthony Simone and has not returned. White flag is in the air as Austin McCusker comes across the line, and he has one more lap around Road Atlanta, 2.5 miles to go. Just 12 turns. Keep it on the road, and you will get win number 2. John Brownson should be coming around here shortly to see the white flag as well. McCusker can almost reel himself in at this point. There's Brownson. He sees the white flag. McCusker's got nearly an 8-second gap back to second. He doesn't need to take any risks. And Nick Janssen just needs to play it smart and hope that everyone else does the same as well to bring that car home in second. The leader, Austin McCusker, has Tonis Katzmets right in his rearview mirror. Austin, though, just doing what he's done all year, being very impressive when he gets behind the wheel of the car, Jeremy, going quickly, but being smart.
Yeah, John Brownson in that car number 34 for Eurosport Racing. Missed qualifying altogether because of an engine problem in practice yesterday. Started from the very, very back, came into the weekend 5th in the points table.
Here they come down the hill for the final time. Checkered flag is in the air, and Austin McCusker takes the win with TJ Fisher in the number 47 Motorsports Norma. The second win for them on the season, and way to go out in style. It cements Austin McCusker's second place in the championship. Nick Janssen brings it home in second, which means that Chris Wright is our champion.
It was Cameron Castles there to take the checkered flag in the 5th position, and I'm pretty sure that's going to be enough to clinch the Masters Championship.
And now we wait for John Brownson to come down the hill as well. He sees the checkered flag waving in the air, and he keeps both hands firmly on the steering wheel until he gets to the line, raises a hand in the air. Victory for John Brownson in the number 34 machine, and it should be enough. We will do the math. I'll have Jeremy do all of the counting, but that should be the MPC Championship going his way.
Well, a phenomenal season, Shea and Jeremy, coming to an end here at Road Atlanta. It's the last time, of course, we'll see the MPC cars. We move on to the P3s solo next year. They've been great servants in this championship down through the years, those Mazda-powered Elan chassis.
And think of all the great drivers who have cut their teeth in those cars. We've gotten the Sean Rahals, the Tristan Nunez's, the Misha Goikbergs, the guys who really learn how to control a car, the Kenton Cooks, the guys who learn just what it's like to drive when you've got almost nothing, as Paul Hay has gone off. Was that on the cooldown lap, or was that at the checkered flag?
I don't think you've actually seen the checkered flag, actually.
Let's see, here's a replay of it. He was going side to side. He dropped 2 wheels and a big impact down the backstretch. I think that was next to Dr. Masson before the braking point in turn 10. Well, that's not the way he would have hoped to end his season.
No, he was out of championship contention in any case. But unofficially, from 5th in the points coming into this weekend, John Brownson will have 172 points, so 170 of Tazio Otis and Bart Wolff, 169 of Stephen Dawes, and 166 of Howard Jacobs.
Wow. Yeah, the cars have been such loyal servants, as you say, and provided such good racing. I really will miss the MPCs. And
this is going to be a Masters class win for Cameron Castles, isn't it? His first one. What's going on here?
Our timing screen just jumbled up a little bit.
Did a bit, but I don't think
Cameron's
there's anything significant. Jerry Kraut will have second place points, I believe, with Scott Andrews. Dean Baker will have third place points. Behind Dean Baker will be Matt Dickin, who was... Oh no, Matt's not a master, is he? Behind Matt, who would be next? Lance Wilsey.
So a phenomenal season has come to an end for the IMSA Prototype Challenge presented by Mazda. The trophies will be going to their worthy winners later on today, which is where Shea Adam is off to now. And as far as the championship is concerned, Jeremy?
Yeah, the Masters Championship will indeed go to Cameron Castles. His first ever Masters class win and the championship as well. The overall winner, Chris Wright, is a champion.